Welcome to Status Update, the social media and creator podcast that you can listen to whilst you're working, because this is a work podcast. I'm Stevie Johnson, MD of Disrupt and ex-television personality. As always today, I'm joined by my friend, colleague, and the voice of Gen Z, Jake Crabb.
Hi, I'm Jake. You probably don't know me yet, but hopefully in time, you will.
So whether you're on your commute, you're at work, taking your break, jump in. This is Status Update.
Hello.
Thanks, everyone. I know it's late in the day, but it's great to see a lot of people here for what is a first for us with this live podcast recording. Our podcast is called Status Update, and we're super excited today to do our first live version at the Influencer Marketing Show Europe 2023. We've got the wonderful Jay Richards, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host. We call him the voice of Gen Z, my colleague, my friend, Jake Crabb. I'm Stevie, I'm MD.
Hello.
Big one for Jake. I'm Stevie, I'm MD at Disrupt. Jake, I'll let you introduce yourself before we move on to Jay.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jake. As you'll probably know me, the voice of Gen Z, as Stevie said. Marketing manager at Disrupt. Yeah, now co-host of a podcast, which is incredibly terrifying.
And as I said earlier, really happy to have Jay Richards alongside us today. Jay, I'll let you introduce yourself quickly.
Oh, I love that. Just one single cheer. So, thanks, guys. Not too much excitement. Hi, everybody. My name is Jay Richards, one of the co-founders at Imagen Insights. Our clients like Amazon, Apple, and Nike, we enable them to crowdsource qualitative insight from Gen Z within a matter of minutes. And I saw that you were having a nightmare with your microphone, which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah, I am. It's gonna be a struggle getting through this with this mic.
Great. And it's awesome to have Jay on the podcast. You know, for those of you that don't know about our podcast yet, it is a dedicated exploration of the creator and digital space. And here we uncover captivating stories and gain industry insights from those key professionals in the space. So Jay, you're perfect. Before we get into anything right away, we ask all of our guests that come on the podcast a quick icebreaker. And that is in line with our name, Status Update. Whether you can look back at a status update or a post you made on social media back in the day that you might look back on now and cringe.
So we've got one. Are they able to play it?
No. Oh my gosh. There we go. No, but you can't play it. But that's our slide. No, couldn't play the video. But
okay, damn it.
Talk us through what it was.
So I have a fashion TikTok, whatever. It's not a big deal, guys. And follow me if you want to follow me, JK Burke. No. But with TikTok, when I first came on, I didn't, obviously I'm like 33 years old. I know you can't tell, I've got a great skincare regime. But my first video was in Dubai, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a stab at this. Like, I say I work with Gen Z, let me create a TikTok. So I created this TikTok. And I was like, oh, everybody's dancing. Let me dance. I've got rhythm. Do you know what I mean? I've got rhythm. But the video, I watched it back the other day, and I was like, what in Lord's name is this? It was terrible. So I posted this video, and then when the guy said, find a video that makes you feel cringy, and I was just like, this is the one. But it was, for me, it was like the start of my journey into TikTok, which was great. But it was a terrible video. Now I've got 25,000 followers, whatever. But
I've got to say, this is how I know that you work a lot with Gen Z, right? Because every guest that we've had on the podcast so far, when we've asked about a cringy status update, it's all been Facebook. It's all been proper old school social.
I don't even have a Facebook. I don't even have an Instagram. I literally only have TikTok.
Literally just TikTok.
And LinkedIn, because I'm professional.
I've seen the video myself, and it's quite cringy. I'm a dad now, so my dad dancing, I can't really judge other people for how they dance, but you know, check it out. It was your first ever TikTok post, wasn't it?
Yeah, literally. Scroll down, like a few on the way down as you're going through engagement.
Great.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So Jay, Imagen Insights, co-founder there. You founded the company on the basis of, you know, investing into underrated talent. That's what I've heard you say before. Where did that passion come from for you?
Yeah, so long story short, I as you can tell, I sell things. Like, I've always been selling stuff, so I started selling stuff when I was a kid. And I was working as a consultant in an insurance firm, and I started a startup incubator investing into kids that grew up in the area that I live in East London. They'd come to me, they'd pitch a business, and I'd give them like a £1,000, £2,000 check, and just be like, yeah, go off. All of them crashed and burned, but it was a good laugh. But Facebook heard I was doing this. They invited me to speak at a conference for them. I went and spoke at this conference, and while I was there, I said, the only thing I want to do is bring 20 of these kids from Tower Hamlets. So I brought these kids. They were like locusts. They just ate all of the food. It was hilarious. But the head of retail from the NFL was in the audience. So after the talk, she comes up to me. She's like, oh, see, you've got this network of young people. In my head, I'm like, network. There's like 50 of them. But anyway. And she's like, could they help us to create a marketing campaign? And I was like, 100% I could do that, without a doubt. So that evening I went home and tried to figure it out. Couldn't figure it out, so I took her for dinner on the following evening. I was like, what is your challenge? What is the problem you're facing? She couldn't get qualitative insight at scale. So I was like, okay, somebody must be solving this. Couldn't find anybody who was solving it. So I went back to the next day and was like, how much would you pay me if I could get this insight for you at scale? She said 30 grand. So I quit my job 6 weeks later.
And how did you go about that qualitative insight, like gaining all of that from all those people?
I text every single person of my 50. It was just like, yo, I will pay you at some point someday if you fill in this form for me and introduce your friends. So they did that, and then I got the money from her, and then I paid them. So it was literally, I think we had 800 people. So it was me on my own reading through 800 responses to 5 qualitative questions, which was wonderful.
Yeah, I bet.
And then I basically just took that data to them, helped them to figure out what to do with it, and then that was my first client. And then it went from there to PepsiCo, to eBay, to Gymshark, and then grew from there.
Wow, what a story. I actually, a lot of that, I mean, I've done a fair bit of research on you before this, but I didn't know that's how it actually completely started, which is awesome to see. You know, a lot of that focus there has been on, under-tapped markets, underprivileged, children and so on, and a big focus of what you guys do is all around Gen Z. If we bring it back to like previous guests we've had on the podcast, we've seen people that have been in the space for 15, 20 years, who have impacted, how agency life, ad land looks nowadays. But from someone from your perspective that's got Gen Z and understands them so well, how is the workforce going to change over time as Gen Z get older and become more, implemented within it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the first thing is to realize that, so with previous generations, with millennials, Gen X, and so on and so on, we kind of just like, I was going to say swallow, that's kind of weird, but anyway, we kind of just like took what they gave us. An employer would say, do X, Y, Z, and you'd be like, you know what, it is what it is. I've got to put the graft in. I'm just going to like take whatever you throw at me. But the interesting thing about Gen Z is that they do have a work ethic, and the common misconception is people like, they don't have a work ethic, they don't care, they're lazy. It's not that they're lazy. It's actually that they're just willing to voice their opinions. So you would get them to do X, and I'm like, you know what? I think that's a bit of a stupid idea. Why am I doing this? And then they will question it. And for the first time in history, this is a generation who's grown up with technology. So they're digital natives. So for them, if you say X, Y, Z, they're going to Google why is this company doing so on and so on. So for them, they've got such access to information that they really want to question everything. So I think the main thing I'm seeing is for employers is understanding you need to be transparent from the go. When you're asking them to do a task and just enabling them to see how this is building into the bigger vision, but also why it's important for them to be doing it for a lot of times, because they're just going to ask questions. It's not them being rude, they're just inquisitive, and they're used to being able to ask these questions because social media has leveled the playing field. Historically, if I wanted to speak to a senior leader, I'd have to email them or jump in or catch them at a festival, or not a festival, a conference. Imagine just in Coachella, like, hey, catch them at a conference. But with Gen Z, they're used to following their favorite CEO on Twitter, being able to shoot them a tweet and they might respond. So that's completely leveled the playing field for them. So when it comes to employers, when it comes to senior leadership, the way they view them is completely different to previous generations.
Just touched on the point of, Gen Z are so passionate about voicing their opinions. It's a demographic that, unlike I think we've ever seen in society, they are passionate, and they're passionate about things like inclusivity, representation, and they're willing to stand up and talk about it, especially on social media, about these values that they're interested in. How does a company like Imagen go to the Amazons and the Googles of this world and convey the genuine value of giving these messages to Gen Z? Like, how do you get that across to these big conglomerates?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The best way to do it is go to them and say, oh, your competitor's already on there. And then they're like, oh, crap, yeah, we need to be on here as well. Competitive energy amongst these massive conglomerates is always the best. So I love doing that as a salesperson. But one of the interesting ways of doing it is actually just giving the opportunity to see the data themselves completely free of charge. I'm just like, yo, have a look around. Because we've got an index. If you go onto our website, you'll see a nice video, 3-minute video of me talking you through the index. But the way the index works is it enables them to ask qualitative questions to consumers and get those responses literally within a matter of hours. So for our clients, we say, hey, there's no fee. Just come in, use it for a week. And after you've used it for a week, if you're interested, you're interested. If you're not, you're not. So no win, no fee. Do you know what I mean? And for a lot of the time, they begin to use the technology and they go, wait, We haven't got this already. We haven't got access to this kind of data. So for them, it's just the proof is in the pudding. And I think allowing them to see it for themselves is different to maybe one day we'll do a research project. It's actually going, just look at the data, ask the question you want to ask, look at the data. Is this the kind of data that you want? Is this what you're missing? Yes. Okay, perfect. There we go.
It sounds like going to be valuable insight, obviously.
Thanks, bro.
For the listener that's listening to this at the moment, and people in the audience that are maybe less data inclined, how would you describe the key differences between qualitative and quantitative data, and what the importance of both?
Yeah, really good. I should have made the caveat. I appreciate that. Thank you, bro. He's like, this research guy waffling on about nothing. So quantitative data is usually percentages, charts. It's like measurable, like metrics. And then qualitative is normally historically be like a focus group. So you get 6 people into a room. You'd be like, oh, this is a lovely cup. Let's discuss the cup. Or social listening and tools like that. So it's qualitative data is normally long form, written out, verbal responses, video responses. So it's like really in-depth insight. And I think you need to have both. You cannot have one without the other. But historically, for a lot of companies, just because it's quicker, they normally lean on quantitative data. So they'll go, 60% of Gen Z think this is a wonderful post. Why? We don't know, but we think it's wonderful. And that's the big problem, is historically we're running headfirst into we don't know what, but we know that 60% of them love it. The big question is, why do 40% of them hate it? And then for the 60% that do love it, why do they love it? And then the one that's most interesting to me is the ones that are on the fence. And that's what qualitative data is for. It's really for they neither love it or hate it. They're kind of just ambivalent about it. So it's can we get them to pivot to one side? Because you'd rather have somebody that really dislikes your product and they care about that, or somebody that absolutely adores it. You don't really want people that don't really care. So that's the difference between the two.
Great.
So for brands or potentially marketers who currently work a lot with other demographics, who maybe struggle to see the value in connecting with a Gen Z audience, or even struggle to form a tenable connection with Gen Z, what's a key piece of advice from your learnings that you'd offer them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is by 2030, their spending power is going to increase to 33 trillion. So if you don't do it, someone else is going to. And I think the common misconception is that Gen Z are 3 years old. They're 8 to 27. So it's a massive age group, and most of them are already in your workplace. They're already spending, they're already doing things. So I think the big thing is that as a brand, your entire job is to make money and to make your shareholders and your stakeholders happy. So if you want to do that, you need to engage with the demographic. This is going to be spending a massive amount of money. And I think the big thing with Gen Z is, with previous generations, so I only ever wear Nikes if I'm wearing trainers. They're a client, they didn't pay me to say that, but I only ever wear Nikes if I'm wearing, actually Adidas as a client as well, but anyway. I only wear Nikes if I'm wearing trainers, but that's because when I was in school, all of my boys in school in the area I grew up in, we all wore Nikes. So if I turn up to school in another pair of trainers, I'd be like, what's going on? So I only ever wear those. And then, so now as an adult, I'm only buying Nikes. So that brand affinity and that brand love was built really early. The challenge with Gen Z is they're bombarded with so much content that building that brand affinity is a lot harder. And a lot of our large clients have really struggled to build that brand affinity, where historically it was very easy because everybody in school wore X, everybody in school wore whatever else. With this demographic, they have so many different people coming in from so many different angles via socials that their views on what is cool or what is interesting are warped by that. So it's harder for them to make those decisions earlier on, like it was with previous generations. The most beautiful part is it gives brands the opportunity to build that brand affinity over time. So if you can build that brand affinity when they're in their mid-teens, their mid-20s, by the time they're in their 30s and they do start spending heavily, they've fallen in love with you. But if you think, oh, you know what, we're just going to leave it because they'll fall in love with us regardless, you'll lose them.
Yeah. Let the record show that I wear Reebok Classics on Nike.
Right. Don't worry, we're not judging you, bro.
One of the points you mentioned earlier, Jay, that I want to pull you up in was around social listening. And that's become more prominent in creative marketing, influencer marketing, and I think for our audience here today and whoever's listening to the podcast, what we've seen is that brands and our clients at Disrupt Marketing, for example, are yearning to understand more about that insight. And I know with what you guys are doing at Imagen, you're questioning kind of how accurate that insight might be. And am I right in thinking you're looking to change the social listening game a little bit?
Yes, I love that energy. Don't get me wrong, I love social listening. I think it's phenomenally powerful. There's some amazing companies that have been doing a phenomenal job of providing social listening data to clients. My big challenge is, we also use social media, right? And if you used to follow me on Instagram, I would post once a year. And that was when I was on holiday. And then the next time you see me post is when I'm on holiday the following year. Because when I'm on socials, if you follow me on Twitter, I sound far more intelligent on Twitter than I am in real life. Because I'm only posting the good things. I'm very rarely going to be completely transparent on Twitter because it's social media. We are all being performative. And even when people say they aren't being performative, they're like, oh, my days, like, I'm having such a hard time. Bro, you're performing. That's just the way it is. So I fully think that having social listening within a mix, within your quantitative research, within your other forms of research is wonderful. But what we've tried to bring in, what I'm really passionate about, is shortening that period of time between where somebody is curious and when they can satisfy that curiosity. And it's very hard to do that at the moment. And that's my big challenge and bugbear with social listening is I think it's a phenomenal tool. I just don't think it enables us to satisfy our curiosity quick enough. And that's why we designed the Imagen Index.
I think with social listening, I agree. I've, in my role, used it a lot.
As the voice of Gen Z.
As the voice of Gen Z and a marketing manager, that comes after the voice of Gen Z. But it's difficult with social listening tools sometimes to cut through the noise. Sometimes you just want to find the opinion, react to it, get a piece out. So I'm excited to have a look at your tool.
Appreciate it, bro. I'll send you the voice now.
Moving on a little bit here, and one of the reasons why Jake and I were both, really excited to have you join us for this live version of Status Update. Is personal branding is all the rage now. In fact, I think there have been talks today at the Influencer Marketing Show focusing on personal branding, and I look at you as someone who's got this down pretty well. In fact, I think you're probably ahead of the game. Became a bit of a buzzword this year, but very much now at the moment, more and more people are looking into it, and I feel like you're ahead of the game. How did you go about building that yourself, and what advice would you give to the listener or people in the audience now about how they can do the same?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I think I don't know if I mentioned earlier, I've got a TikTok, it's a fashion TikTok, whatever. No. But aside from that, on LinkedIn, I'm really heavy on LinkedIn. I've been posting every day for about 4.5 years now, I think it is.
Yeah. And I need to do that. I need to do that.
and the funny thing is, I think the thing with personal branding is that a lot of time when you look at LinkedIn, like they're a bit wanky.
It's very self-serving.
Yeah, so it's like,
Everyone's getting up at 4 a.m.
100%. Bro, like, just chill, man. It's too early. It's dark. You know what I mean? Like, not even Jesus is up that early. But I think it's the problem with personal branding is it's got a bad rap. But the reason why I find LinkedIn the most interesting, because only 1% of users, and this is data from LinkedIn, only 1% of LinkedIn users actually post on the platform. I think their users, I think it's 300 million a month or maybe more than that, 900, I can't remember what it is, but only 1% are posting on the platform. And of those that are posting, as you will see, majority of them are posting like, I'm looking for a job or I'm looking for somebody. Do you know what I mean? Like that's pretty much most of the content that's out there. So when I got on LinkedIn, my entire thing was, how can I just add value? Like, when I first started doing it, the business isn't where it is now. And I just like, how can I every day just try and add value? I found something that I thought was interesting. Let me add value. And I think the thing that you're seeing with personal branding now is people seeing people like Steve Bartlett and the lads like that. And my boy Tim Armu and other folks are out there. Like my friend Penny, she's a CMO at Canada Goose. And they're killing it. And everyone's trying to jump on the bandwagon off the back of that. And I think if you're doing it for that reason, you will burn out. Because it's tiring, like trying to find content every day, it's just tiring.
How do you find that? Because you say you post every single day.
Yeah.
How do you find the right content to do that? Because for me, I'm desperate to post on LinkedIn every day. I think I've got a lot of cool stuff to share and very insightful stuff as well.
So humble.
But at the same time, I just don't know how I physically have enough things to post every single day for my audience.
I think the thing is that like already just from the questions you asked me, you're a curious person, like you're inquisitive, and I think lean into that in being inquisitive, lean into being curious, and I think the common misconception is people feel like they need to be professional on LinkedIn. If you go through some of my LinkedIn posts, I'm not gonna lie, they're kind of wild. Like I say some real odd stuff, but it's just like that's what I find interesting. So I think it's finding content and stuff that you're like, that's kind of interesting. Let me then have my take on that. And I think it doesn't have to be like a professional thing that you're saying, or it doesn't have to be like I don't know, you're trying to give advice or whatever. Just find something you find interesting, put your own spin on it, and then post it out. And I think it's doing that, you then begin to see what the people that are following you, what they like and what they're engaging with. So I just put some posts out and I get like 2 likes and I'm like, what's going on? Like, why doesn't nobody like me? I feel like I'm screaming into the void. But then I put some posts, I'm like, oh wow, that hit really well. And then I try and understand that. And one thing I do is kind of nerdy, and I don't encourage everybody to do this, but every single person that likes my post, I go through and have a look at every single person. So if a post has got like 3,500 likes, I'm going through every single like. And I just want to see.
Is that healthy?
Probably not, no, but I'm speaking to my therapist about it. It's fine. I have a wonderful therapist, shout out Jeremy. But I'm going through every single, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to understand what industry they came from, and then I want to
So it's purely LinkedIn that you're like, okay, TikTok, Instagram. I mean, with the dad dancing on TikTok, I'm not sure how many likes you're getting, but you're not going through. It's purely Instagram lead generation.
He's got 25,000 followers on TikTok. He's not got the time to go through.
He's got 20,000 followers on LinkedIn.
That's very true, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good
Guys,
point.
stop blowing me up. Guys,
Do you find that having this big audience on LinkedIn impacts the work you do with Imagen? Like, do you find, because you have a large following, it benefits Imagen positively?
Oh, without a doubt, 95% of our business came from my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild. Like, our largest client last year that spent an obscene amount of money with us, compared to them spending nothing this year anyway. That all came from LinkedIn. And I'm talking the most random posts. Like,
Yeah.
I'm talking your post, the most random thing, and the head of marketing at a large brand. So he's like, yo, I saw this post about da-da-da-da-da. I also saw in your title that you do Gen Z Insights, so let's have a meeting. We had a meeting, and he's like, oh, here's a PO for X. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But most of our business, literally like 95%, if not higher, comes from that.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that when you talk about influence marketing, B2B is often left out of the conversation. It's forgotten about.
And I'm happy about that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
More money for me.
When we spoke to, sorry, I'm having a time of it with this mic. It keeps falling off. When we spoke to Rob Mayhew on the first episode of Status Update, he said that when he works with, and stop laughing at this mic.
Sorry.
When he works with a brand, what he's being paid for isn't the 5 minutes or however long it is to make a sketch. He's getting paid for the 20 years experience that makes his content relevant to his audience and therefore the demographic the brand's trying to reach. Does the same apply to you as a B2B influencer, either in your own personal brand or for the work you do at Imagen again?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's such a valid point the way you say that, because they're not being paid for that 5 minutes. And I think for a lot of our clients, they're coming to us because within the influencer space, as in like, so I'm speaking like as agencies, like Gen Z is super sexy. Within the market research space, like if I speak at a conference, it's normally like me and like 3 old white dudes, like that they run the market research companies.
Yeah.
Within our space, there's not really many people that are like young black guys from East London. So it's the being able to bring my own angle and my own spin on it. People see the value in that, and then they obviously see that I'm exceptionally dressed, so they go, okay, so he's obviously close to Gen Z, so we're going to engage with that. But I think the ability for them to see somebody that to them understands the demographic in a way that they don't currently understand, but from an angle that they're not used to, because they're used to influencer agencies understanding Gen Z. They're not used to market research. So many of our clients come to us, I'm talking huge organizations that have not conducted research with Gen Z because they're like, we don't know where to start. So they come to us because they don't know where to start, which is great.
So are you telling us that the key to your success is 1, your outfits,
100%.
2, having a social following?
Basically.
Jay touched on it earlier, like B2B influence has almost been forgotten when you look at the creator economy now. I think that is changing very much so, especially this year. I've got certain opinions on why that is the case. I think the macroeconomic conditions have affected that in the sense that, with cost of living, everything that's happening in the world, people are more inclined to look for certain side hustles as a result. But are the lines therefore becoming more blurred between B2C and B2B influencers, would you say?
It's a good question. I would say yes, because I think the challenge is, I would say yes, but I think the challenge is, all right, guys, thanks for leaving.
Cheers.
No, specifically point them out. No, I think the challenge is that yes, the lines are blurring, but I think the problem is that on the B2B sides, it's with influencer on the B2C sides, it feels more mature, as in like not as in the industry feels more mature.
Definitely.
With the B2B side, it still feels like there's like a whole bunch of scam artists out there. Like I found out the other day, there's like entire groups that once you get over 100K followers on LinkedIn, you get invited to this group and they basically just like each other's posts. And I was like, that's kind of weird.
That's been happening though on other social. Instagram always had the Instagram pods,
Yeah, I had
where
no
people
idea
would
this was a thing.
like and comment. You're part of this pod, and you get that automatic engagement as part of it.
Bro, I'm out here busting my ass. I'm like, these guys are just getting likes for free. I was like, what the hell? But because of that, it's kind of like it's still like this weird era where you get people coming out and they're trying to become a B2B influencer, whatever the heck it is, and they're saying the most random weird things. Or they're like posting something, and I'm just like, dude, like we can all see you. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't post this on socials. But they're trying too hard. But that's because we're in this infant stage of it, where in like a decade's time it'll be completely different, and we'll be very accustomed to it. So it'll be a lot more less weird.
Yeah, and you see a lot of podcasts. We're doing a podcast, but of these people that are, thought leaders and the B2B experts or business experts in their space, and actually there's no clout behind them at all in terms of like what they've actually achieved. And I think there is a damaging element of looking into that a little bit more. But there's no denying that B2B has been slower to adopt than B2C influencer marketing. The principles are the same, but the execution seems to be a little bit different. I mean, have you partnered with a brand?
Yeah, do you actually like work with external companies and do influencing yourself?
From a B2B perspective, no. But it's actually funny enough, somebody approached me recently. Like literally I had like 4 people connect with me and they were all like managers of like LinkedIn people.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I felt about it, to be honest. I was kind of like, I don't know. It's a bit like, so I've got a manager for speaking engagements outside of the business.
Yeah.
So he will manage.
Which is a separate entity, right?
Which is a whole different thing, which I kind of like do hosting of events or whatever.
Yeah.
But, so plug. But the actual like, but I really don't like the word influencer, but being a content creator on LinkedIn and then you don't laugh. Being a content creator on LinkedIn and then being paid for that, I don't know why I find that kind of weird. On TikTok, yeah, like people send me clothes and I get paid to do that, which is wonderful. But I don't know why, and maybe I need to figure that out with my therapist.
I think
I don't know why.
it definitely seems like an alien concept, like getting paid to post on LinkedIn of all places.
It's like, Jay, promote a company. Like, it'd be weird. Like, and also, what am I going to be doing? What am I going to talk about? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I love these trainers from Nike. Do you know what I mean? Like, on LinkedIn, it's just weird.
Yeah.
And I think, regardless if it's B2C or B2B or B2C, we always say it disrupts, like hashtag ad used to be, very much looked down upon. Influencer used to be a dirty word. It really did. And over time, audiences and consumers have got used to it. We like to think about advertainment. So basically, if you can make the ads you're doing for brands entertaining, consumers are more likely to engage. That audiences are as well. I didn't know where I was going with this point, actually. You made some good points there.
We are pros at podcasting, by the way.
But I think as well, there's an element, if we go back to B2B, I think it's the aside I had here. If we go back to like B2B, I also think there's an element where Gen Z, something that you're obviously an expert in, that demographic is growing up. You said earlier that they're not kids anymore. These are people that are becoming part of the workforce, and these are a group of social natives, people that have been brought up on smartphones and on social media platforms, and as a result, their creative capability and wanting to create content is very different to people like me, a millennial. Again,
Not so much me, mate.
And I think that's...
Or born with a phone in my
I think that's showing a big rise in the B2B space, and I think a massive trend that I'm seeing that I think we're going to see moving forward is all around employee advocacy for a lot of brands. Rather than going out to different influencers to promote the B2B space, is actually finding within your network of employees or people that have dealt with you as a company is having them create content in order to build that credibility and trust. As I said, it's the same as B2C influencer, but it's just B2B, and it's been slower to adopt. But hopefully there's more there to come, really. Jay, one of the things that... sorry, you're going to make a point.
Nah, I felt like there was a question coming, but I could see you just being like, is there a question at the end of this?
It was one of those moments where I, wished I had a podcast just on my own when I was speaking, just like saying a load of like random thoughts, really as part of it. But one of the things that we've, asked a lot of our guests on status updates, we had that icebreaker at the start, and one of the things we like to ask as we're getting close to the end is all around the future. If you want to make a trend prediction for the next year, like what do you see in the next 12 months or something of the way that we're going to be changing the way that we're working, or what might be different in the creator or the digital space or the more of the insight space that you're involved in?
Also, very smart public speaking skill there, where you were just like, as I'm coming to the end, because that re-engages like 70% of the room. Everyone's like, the end. This is a great podcast. Wasn't saying it wasn't a great podcast.
That's right. I perked up as well, mate.
We all do it. I'm like, on my last slide, and everyone's like, yes. I I think the main thing that I'm seeing, and the main thing I think is going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months is, so we've all heard of like first party data. Everybody's been panicking about it, like, oh, first party data, what does it mean? Like cookies, oh my God, do I eat them? Like, it's like, there's been a lot of like energy around it for a long period of time. But what a lot of brands are realizing is, instead of looking as like, actually, I'm scared because we don't currently have access to first party data, it's understanding actually how valuable first party data can be and actually gaining that for themselves. And that's one thing. So at Imagen, we have our own community, 35,000 people in 111 countries, and people always come to me, they're like, why don't you just plug into a panel? Like, it's much easier. Because like some of the guys that I've met here, they plug into panels at like 260 million people. And my big thing is always, if we're asking for 400-word responses from these people, if I have no idea who you are and I don't have any data on you, you could literally be Jack the Lad and be talking absolute nonsense. There's nothing I can do about it. But because it's our own platform and our own technology, we can do that. And for brands, we're seeing a lot of brands shifting towards that, both working with ourselves, but also internally. They're coming to us going, actually, we want to use you for the big macro trends and understanding, because we know you have your own community and that's important to us, and also how diverse our community is. Like 60% female, 25% Asian, 15% black, 20% low income, 20% LGBT plus, and 2% registered disabled. So actually diverse, not just like chatting out my backside. But so it's for a lot of our clients, they come to us and like, okay, we love that you've got that, but could you also help us to build our own community that we can engage with on a regular basis? Because historically they're doing that on like WhatsApp and stuff like that. So it's like a logistical nightmare. So everybody gives up. So for me, the big shift that I'm seeing is everybody's focusing heavily on first party data and how to do that in a way that doesn't make the user or the consumer feel like they're just like a piece of data. And we're doing some interesting stuff internally about figuring that out and making sure that, so say for example, I had your data, a brand comes to me and Nike says, oh, we want to know from this specific person XYZ. I can say to you, Nike wants to know about your data. Are you happy to be paid to do that? And you go, yep, tick, tick, tick. And then you get paid for doing that. And that for me is the future, where you're able to actually select the data that you share with these brands instead of it just being like, I clicked on these cookies and now I don't know what the hell they're doing. Do you know what I mean? So for me, that's the future. I think it'll probably take longer than 18 months, but I'm going to force my CTO to do it quicker. So.
Well, by the way, I love the sound where basically saying that's the future. That makes it very easy for our social assets as well. Something as big as that. Again, very good public speaking training there. And then, spoken about some trends there. Like, what's the biggest challenge facing you in the next 12 months?
Good question. I think, so the great thing that we've got a phenomenal subscription tool. Clients sign up. It's very easy to onboard. They literally get a login and then they can start asking questions within minutes. Like, it's wonderful. The challenge is a lot of brands, they're so entrenched with social listening with these other tools that they're kind of like, oh man, I don't know about this. Once they do a trial, like with like Condé Nast or Superdrug and these other clients have Samsung signed up recently, they do the trial and they go, I get it. We're going to pay. It's getting them to that first stage because they're interested, but they're kind of nervous because they're just like, oh, I don't know, like this seems like unusual, it seems new. So I think our biggest challenge is helping brands to see that there's a new way of gaining qualitative insight and a way of doing it that's one, authentic, hate that word, but anyway, one that's authentic, but also is valuable for both sides. Because normally when you're collecting data, it's only ever valuable for one side. So for a brand, normally it's valuable for them because then we're getting a ton of data, but then for the person providing the data, they're not getting paid anything. But for us, we pay really, really well. So we're able to add value to both sides. So I think our big challenge is enabling brands to know that we exist, and what we do is a whole new way of getting qualitative insight.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I mean, Jay, just as a final word for the first ever status update live, we touched on it earlier. What's one takeaway? Sorry, this bloody mic. One takeaway or one tip for any marketers, brands, whatever in the room to engage with Gen Z? The one golden piece of advice. What is it from you?
Love that. Okay, so with all generations, we're not a monolith. Like a Gen Z are not a monolith. You can't look at one Gen Z, but that's how they're all going to operate. So it's whatever you're trying to sell. It's figuring out the community that is excited around what you're trying to sell, that niche community, and engaging with them in a way that makes sense to them, and then just sitting down, asking questions, and then listening. A lot of time at brands, we love to ask questions and then talk over the people that are talking. But we ask those questions and then we listen to the answer that they're going to give. If you can do that, whether that's with amazing companies like ourselves or doing that yourself, you're gonna win in the long run.
Love that. Niche communities. That is A lot of people have, spoken to us about that on the podcast, and I think it's a really powerful expression right now that's only going to become more and more important over time. Jay, we've got to thank you massively for updating your status with us live at the Influencer Marketing Show Europe. You've been amazing. I always knew you would be, but the energy and the passion that you brought to this, I think, has been really valuable for us as podcast hosts, for the audience, and hopefully the listener. Jay, as I said, thank you so much for joining us today and doing this. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
Me, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for updating your status with us today. If you've enjoyed today's episode of Status Update, why not follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you found today's discussion insightful, share it with your friends or colleagues to keep them in the loop. Once again, thanks for stopping by for this episode of Status Update. We'll see you in the next one.